Hello and welcome to Hueytown. My name's Ken McFarland. I'm your host for Rings, Gears, and Opinions. And another guest today I know you guys are going to enjoy is full of history. Came to Alabama in the 70s and worked with Bobby Allison for many years and had a great career down in South Florida. But he's got a great story, a lot of history. Been there, been through it all, seen it all. And George White, thank you for showing up today.
Thanks for having me, Ken. I enjoy your show.
Well, good. It started out just pretty simple, and it's staying that way. But it's great to get you guys and get your stories because you're so rich with the history of the sport, and you guys know it so intimately. You know that, especially people like myself, that from afar is one thing, but to get in and to know the insights of the stories, and you're so rich with it. So I'm excited to get here. So George White's from South Florida.
Well, actually, Central Florida. I grew up in St. Pete, Tampa area.
Okay, yeah.
And which was good because even the South Florida guys would come up and run what they call Showtime now, St. Pete racetrack, little quarter-mile track, which you may have run there. I don't know.
No, I never went there.
St. Pete, Tampa, New Smyrna, Orlando Speed World. You know, back then, Orlando wasn't even there, but New Smyrna was like a dirt track.
Yeah.
But it was a good beginning. I actually started with a guy named Dan Daughtry that actually won the World Figure Eight Championship. Okay. You know, I just helping him in the pits. I was a kid. Yeah. And this guy was pretty good. So, to win a figure eight championship world, you had to be something.
Now, how did you become friends with him, and how did that relationship begin?
Well, just snuck in the racetrack, and about the same way I got into the NASCAR. We'll go about that later.
All right.
But I had a friend, and we snuck in and would help him a little bit with the cars. And, that was back when you went to the drive-in, you had 3 or 4 people in the trunk because you had no money.
Sure.
So, but anyway, got involved with him a little bit and bumped into a lot of people that's racing now, from down in that area. And, it was really cool when you were a kid. Just kind of kept me out of trouble.
Sure. And again, I think if you're born with that interest in you, it's there from an early age. And anytime that you're able to expose yourself or be around those people, I don't know, there's just an attraction that's just you can't disconnect, so you're there and you're in high school and you start taking a mechanics class. Is that right?
Yeah, I actually, and I'm a big proponent for vocational high schools.
Sure.
For all the disciplines of all crafts. And actually I did that and did 3 years of it. And how it all got started in 69, I think it was, a friend of the family's took us to Daytona. And man, my dad was an electrician, so he was all business.
Yeah.
And,
right.
he had to work all over the country to make enough money and, to supply the needs for the family. And we went to Daytona, and that's when Ron McTavish, terrible accident, got killed right in front of us.
Wow. And
I just went, wow, not that part of it, but just the racing was just got me hooked.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and it was a family friend that took you?
Right.
What was his name? You remember?
Bill Harrington.
Okay. Yeah.
And he has just recently passed, and he was friends of the family, and one of these charismatic guys like you see at church that, always going to help a kid, really help them, not,
so he plugged into you guys.
Right.
And it was you and 2 other your friends?
Well, yeah, a little later on, it was myself and Rick Peters and Donnie Lawrence and Tom Lawrence. It was 4 of us starting with, and it whittled down to 3. But Rick Peters actually went on. He was the hauler driver for Earnhardt and Neill's deal.
Wow.
So we kind of split up that way. Actually, I snuck into Daytona again and bumped into Sammy Pistone, which is Tiger Tom's Pistone, which he was quite a dude back in the day. And we just started helping around, and Sammy introduced us to Ralph Moody. Okay. And back then it was Holman and Moody team, and Dave Pearson.
So Sam was involved with the race team pretty good? Or?
Oh, yeah. His daddy, Tom Pistone, they actually, back then they had a parts business.
Gotcha.
And they were at the track.
Okay.
So he introduced us to Ralph, and Ralph just said, man, I need free help. Even back then, the factory teams still needed some help. So
Okay.
we just, it was great.
Did you realize who you were helping
No.
that day? Had no idea.
Had no idea. David Pearson was driving the car at the time,
Wow.
which was, I like Freddie Lorenzen.
Okay.
Back then, everybody liked Freddie.
Sure.
He had the Tim Richmond look and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And he was a hot rodder too. But anyway, we got helping them, and David, I don't think he won that race. He I don't know exactly what happened then, but anyway, Ralph said, "Man, can you come to the next race?" So we said, "Sure." So we went back, did school, left Friday afternoon. We all had a little part-time jobs, so we all chipped in our gas money, got in an Econoline van, and rode to the next race.
And that happened all year, all the way up
that
into
year.
East Coast.
Yeah.
Looking back on that, with the finances you had and this almost seems impossible, doesn't it? To accomplish that.
Yeah.
I mean,
you look back and it's just, you see how life went and different situations you were in. And that's why I tell young people now, just watch what you choose and which way you go. Because, you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, but you have a big influence in it.
Well, I've known you for probably close to 40 years, it seems like, but you've always been somewhat grounded, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? Has that always been the case for you?
Well, actually not.
Okay.
I mean, the whole delivery was, in Florida, it was, it was the 70s and all the stuff was going on, and it was easily to get in trouble. And I was going to college at the time.
Right.
When I got the call to come up here to Hueytown, and I had no idea. But, going back to the Pearson thing, David run and won. He was quite the winner. And Ford Motor Company decided to pull out of racing.
Okay.
And I didn't know this till a few years later, but David met with John Holman. John Holman was the business part. Ralph Moody was the driver and the fabricator and all that part. And they met with David, and he goes, "David," he says, "I'm going to have to cut your pay." And David's deal, what was told to me by guys at Holman back then, was half of what he made. That was it.
Yeah.
No residual. They didn't have much T-shirts, all that.
Right.
So anyway, David says, "Sorry, I'm gone." He said, "You get 40%. We got a 60 because we don't have Ford anymore." David left. Naturally, went to the Woods Brothers.
So did you get to know David on much of a level at all?
Very little.
Very little.
Yeah, because he was kind of a guy to himself. I mean, he was pretty cool. He would say, "Hey, how you doing?"
Cordial, but not. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, we were the little pit guys, and nobody really knew us.
Right.
So, but it was a neat situation when Bobby got to get in the car.
So you got to go to Victory Lane back then at times, right?
Yeah.
Or did you? Okay,
Yeah.
so that
I don't have any pictures of which I did. I think a couple times we did. But
yeah.
that was in like more of about the first half of the year period, and we didn't go to all the races.
I got you. Yeah, because that had to be hard for you guys to make the show to get there.
Man, it was something. We would go, later when we went with Ralph, and then we had no motel room, but like I said, we had that Econoline van, so we go to Daytona in February, and me, Rick, and Don, we didn't have any money. They would give us a little lunch money, so we had no place to stay. So we put our sleeping bags. Back then, in the motels in Florida, they had a little laundromat down there.
Yeah.
So we laid our sleeping bags in front of there, opened the dryer, and put dimes in the dryer. Because it's cold in February at Daytona. Don't let nobody kid you.
That's still a pretty cheap room, I guess. Isn't it? Yeah. But so anyway, you're traveling and you're helping Holman, Moody, and Pearson leaves the deal. What's the next? Where do we go from there?
Well, Bobby gets in the car, and now Bobby we knew a lot better. Actually, some of the key guys were, when Bobby came, you had Chuck Looney came with him, and Eddie kind of came. They weren't, they were kind of part of the crew, and but back then it was Junior Martin and Wydell was there.
Okay,
he was kind of the engine guy, and we got to know all those guys.
Right.
So
you're becoming better help. I guess you're getting you're getting educated, and you're getting more involved on a day-to-day basis. And
right.
you've moved. Have you moved there yet?
No,
So
no.
y'all still okay?
No, we're still there.
Traveling. Okay.
Um,
And then with Bobby, if I remember right, they won first race out at Darlington. Was that?
yeah, he won the first race in, and then actually we won 8 or 9 races that year.
Wow. Yeah.
And that was cool.
Yeah.
And I really think, I don't know if Bobby really liked it, but Ralph said, "Man, you guys got to be good luck. Just come with us," because we never had a shirt. Finally, he gave us a got in a rag bag in there, got old Holman. I wish I still had it, old mustard colored Holman Moody shirt. Man, we thought we were on top of the world.
It's amazing how far you're traveling, how hard you're working for a
man.
T-shirt, isn't it?
Yeah, it's something. But I mean, today, I don't even think you can get in the business.
Yeah,
You probably have to pay.
Yeah, I don't think unless you've got an education that they're looking
huge.
for and stuff. Yeah, it's not even
a lot of politics.
Doable. Yeah. So so Bobby runs and y'all have a good year, win multiple races, and you begin to meet Chuck and Eddie and we've, of course, anytime you talk about Bobby back in the day, you got to talk about Chuck Looney.
Oh yeah.
And what a steadfast friend and employee and a worker he was for those guys, because one of a kind, I mean, he's just a great guy.
Yeah, Chuck, a lot of people don't know, Chuck was an ace bowler.
Yeah.
I mean, he threw, in fact, they said he threw a 300 game somewhere and got a pretty good little chunk of money. So he goes out to Tom Glover and he buys a 64 Chevelle, brand new.
Wow.
Brings it back, and guess what Bobby's first Chevelle was?
No, it's not.
Chuck's car.
No, you're kidding.
It was, I swear. I didn't know it until later.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know
that's
that
the
story.
old 2 car,
yeah,
where they started the little engine, the good thing. Yeah.
And that's actually how Donnie and them met. Chuck was at the bowling alley.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
That's pretty cool. All right, so you got them guys coming and traveling, so you're getting to know the group from Alabama a little bit through that process. So not long after that, you get hired on at Holman and Moody?
Well, no, actually, Bob Sumlin called, which was Bobby's brother-in-law, married to his older sister. He calls and says, "Would you like to come to work? Bobby's building a big shop. We're going to start building cars. We'd really like to have you." And we didn't mention pay. We didn't mention anything. So
you're still a volunteer.
Oh, I'm still volunteering. I'm actually in college.
Okay, so, got you. Okay,
So I was going for an engineering degree, and which fits right, mechanic right on end.
Sure.
They actually down there they had an automotive engineering degree, so I was working on that, and got the call, and I said, "Mom, Dad was out of town working somewhere, union job somewhere," and I said, "Man, I got a chance of going racing," and she goes, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I think I'm going to go to Hueytown."
Really?
So, that was about the conversation about it. Dad got in the weekend. And he says, "Well, just, watch it up here in Alabama."
Yeah.
So I said, "I'll watch it." So they just said, "Fine, go."
So how do you get to Hueytown? How do you travel?
Oh, I didn't even have a ride.
Didn't even have a ride.
No, I had a 64 Fairlane Sports Coupe, my little hot rod, and it was blown up. So I just found a guy. I don't even bumped into a guy somewhere, and he worked for Allegasco up here.
Okay.
He had like a 440 tunnel ram on this 440 big Corvette car. And I said, "Man, I need to ride to Alabama." He said, "I'm going this weekend." So I brought my suitcase and clothes on my back and maybe $100 bill.
Wow.
And moved up here. Now, Bobby had a house for us, so he had a place to live. And I think,
is this at the church?
Yeah, it's right there on Hueytown Road.
Okay.
No, we called it the Hueytown Hilton.
Okay, I got you. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So we, I came up, we did that deal, and
is the shop new? The big shop? Is it?
Yeah, it was just getting done.
It was just getting finished.
Yeah, I think Lee Shipman or somebody was building it for Bobby, and we were actually working at the old shop.
Okay.
And he says, "Well, we want you to move," and so we sat down and talked. Bobby says, "Well, I tell you what, I'm going to start you at $55 a week."
Wow.
I said, "Man, that's big money." and you got a place to stay, so don't worry about that.
That's right.
We were never at the house.
Sure.
We were always
right.
gone.
Yeah. And no limit on the hours that you were going to work.
Oh, no. That was not even in the discussion. An average day was at least 15 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
7 days a week.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it was pretty neat.
So who's living in the house with you there? You remember?
Well, when I moved in, it was me and the body guy, Carol McSwain, which he was from Fort Lauderdale. He come up and he kind of got all the red and gold paint and stuff doing. You know, he's a really good body guy. He knew Bob Sunman from Florida and moved up. And he had a girlfriend, and we all it was me and him in the house. And then whenever somebody get in trouble at the shop with their wife, they would move in with us.
Okay.
Happened quite regular. So anyway, it was quite a deal. So
what do you start doing? Tell me about your skill level. You think what's your skill level at when you come to Hueytown?
Well, I was probably about a 2 or a 3. You know, I could do a little bit of welding, learned a lot of welding there, but really started just sweeping the floors.
Yep.
Moved on up, and we ended up.
What makes him attractive? Did you know Mr. Sunman at that time?
No, not at all. But
okay,
got to know him. He was a good
So
guy.
what makes you think? What makes him call you and give you that opportunity?
I guess Bobby told him.
Just okay.
Yeah,
just his.
Said, hey, you know, if they want to come, let them come. They actually wanted me and Rick, and somehow Rick got a call, and he went up with Dick Hutchison for a while. He actually moved his family. He had gotten married after that time, and moved Margie and him up to Charlotte.
Okay,
and went to work with Dick Hutchison.
Yeah.
So that's when we kind of split. I came here, and they went that way.
Okay. So you start out just lower level. A lot of people were working there at that time. Who all was working there?
Well, when we got moved over to the big shop, there was probably 6 or 7, and then it got up to 12, 15. And at that time, we met who had really kind of helped Bobby get going was Bill Holman, Sr.
Yeah.
And he was actually, I didn't know it, he was at Holman and Moody from day one. I mean, he was way back.
Okay.
And great fabricator, just the kind of guy to get in there. And, you know, if you tore your car up, it's ready the next morning.
So this Holman is who in the Holman and Moody?
Well, he's not related.
He's not related.
No.
He just has the same name.
Right.
Okay,
but he worked at Holman and Moody for years.
Okay. All right.
And in the later days, John and Ralph would actually sub him out to different people that they built. You know, they built different team cars.
Sure, right.
For different people. So they got in trouble and they needed Bill. He would go troubleshoot, you know, fix up.
So he's here in Hueytown.
But he moved and went to work for Bobby.
Okay, so, good.
Which was a great guy to be around. I mean, fabricator, unbelievable.
Took time with you and
well, actually not. But, you know, they would put the new guys with Bill because he was not the type that, I mean, you didn't touch his tools.
Yeah.
And, you know, we started like everybody, you know, went got a little toolbox and, you know, from the Mac man or Snap-on man or whoever was with the team. And so you didn't touch Bill's tools much. If you did, he's like my dad, it better go back where it was. And old Bill had some arms about big around as my legs. So he was.
So you respected that.
He definitely leveraged respect, that's for sure.
So, and at some point in this time, do you guys, I know Bobby would go race his own stuff on the Cup side. Is that happening during this time that you're there also?
No, that happened. Well, it was just happening. He had the deal. I think back then he had the deal with Junior kind of starting.
Right.
And we were still building customer cars.
Right.
So we would build, you know, Bill would bend the cages. We, you know, finally learned how to notch the roll bars and, you know, do some stuff. And, you know, eventually Bill got us into making stuff and you know, panels or whatnot. And, you know, if the panel wasn't right, is out, you making it again.
Right.
So we actually learned old school.
And you guys were, again, building the cars, manufacturing the stuff, but you also had parts also, correct? All kind of stuff. If somebody wanted a roll bar kit or something, that stuff was already there and y'all could just ship it out. And so that deal was a pretty good machine, I guess, as far as helping the common racer and building products and parts, control arms, all that kind of stuff during that time.
Yeah, well, Bobby really started the 4 coil spring cars.
Okay.
You know, back in the day, they only had 2 in the front, generally leaves in the back or you know, big truck arms and stuff.
Right.
So he really got that going with the Chevy stuff. Most everything back then was all Ford or Dodge.
Right, yeah.
And so he really broke the ground on that, and we made sway bars, arms, produced a little bit of everything. So for 6 months, I'd be in the machine shop grooving. The sway bars back then was all hand groove. There's no CNC machine.
Right. Yeah.
And we would cut and bend our own coil springs
Okay.
and rate them. And it was, pretty good to learn, the basics, how to square up a car, center lines, and everything, how to deal with all that.
Is there somebody in particular there that took time with you that really helped bring you along at a faster pace, or just
Eventually I got pretty good with Bill.
okay, yeah.
So and you had and Eddie.
Yeah.
I'd work with Eddie pretty closely. Eddie back then mainly did gears, and at that time I wasn't even going to the track when I
Right.
first started. So I asked Bobby one day, "Hey, can I go out and practice changing tires?" He said, "Yeah, if you tear up the studs, you got to make some more and put in it, and you use the nitrogen you need to because we're getting it for free. But if you tear something up, it's coming out of your pay." So I'd get out there and change tires every day.
So how did you do that? You had a car?
Yeah, I just had a car. I'd jack it up out there
Yeah.
and go around, take the tire off, put it, glue up some old wheels and stuff, and practice and practice.
And you made a good friend there, Derringer.
Oh yeah. During that time, Daryl Derringer Senior was, a pretty good upper echelon guys back with, all the old guys, Marvin Panch and all them.
And where were they from? North Carolina.
Yeah, he was from North Carolina, but they, his dad Senior got divorced, and he ended up, he met the wife in Indianapolis.
Okay.
So Daryl lived in Indianapolis.
Okay.
So I think Daryl Senior called Bobby and said, "I got to get my son to do something."
Okay.
So he came down like me and was working. So
Okay.
our first job together was actually cutting up Friday Hassler's car that he was killed in,
Wow.
and it was just wasn't good.
No,
we really didn't realize what was going on so much.
But Bobby had bought.
He bought everything that Friday had from his wife because Bobby was just that way.
Just a heart.
She was in trouble, and he just went and bought everything.
Wow.
So which was good.
So
They were friends. I mean, everybody thought Bobby and Friday was not friends, but on the track, there's really nobody's your friend at that time.
Right. Yeah. That's correct. Yeah.
But
So y'all had a nickname for Daryl Jr.
oh yeah,
correct?
Demon.
Demon. You just,
Well, that was his daddy's name for him.
oh.
So it was Demon Derringer.
Okay.
And he's still around. We still link up, and he's gone on and raced a little bit. He always wanted to race, and we got an old car out there, and Bobby said, "Yeah, you can work on it out in the parking lot." So we worked on it. He run a few races, and
I think there's a picture of you guys with that car in the parking lot and stuff.
yeah, there is. We were, really thought we were something back there. Had old Neil Salter or something, 57 Chevy or something he bought.
Yeah. So y'all become quick friends.
Yeah.
You and Demon,
Yeah.
and y'all are living in the same house together as
Oh, yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So, and then again, you talk about tearing this Friday Hassler car, or dismantling that car. When did you realize what you were working on, or how long did you?
Well, we, actually saw the crash. I
Yeah.
went to the track and saw the crash, and even back then, I didn't realize what I saw, but it came to me later, and that's later on. We'll talk about
Yeah.
a head restraint.
Yeah.
Because when they brought Friday in, we were out of the race, and I don't think I even helped at that race, but we were on the hauler, and we were right down by the hospital part,
Mhm.
and they brought Friday in on the gurney, and Friday's a tall guy. So
Okay.
he was on the gurney, and one guy was kind of holding his head, and I'll never forget, and it stretched his neck out big time.
Really, and that's what.
So I think right there I went, man, it gave me a little seed for what would happen later.
Okay. So you Daryl's Junior's working with you at Bobby Allison's and stuff, and you guys, is he pretty good mechanic, pretty good help? I mean, is he?
Yeah, he ended up being okay. There again, there was a lot of manual labor, building A-frames, and we'd cut out the parts, and everybody had to about do everything because
Right.
you had no shock specialist,
Right.
So
Who's driving the ship day to day at that point in time?
Bob Sullivan
Okay.
and Chuck was head of the parts,
Okay.
and he would come out and, hey, you're gonna have to work 3 hours later because we got to get an order out tomorrow.
Right. Yeah.
So it was actually race car building machine, and it worked pretty good for a while.
Yeah. So, what goes on with you guys? Is your time with Bobby's advancing and stuff, and you finally get to go to the races with them?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we actually we ended up kind of doing the short track stuff.
Okay.
We would get to haul it, and we went all over. When Bobby would go to Michigan, he'd run Toledo, Ohio. He'd set up some Thursday, Friday night, Saturday night, or Thursday night, whenever, to make a little extra money.
Was that? Everybody knows that. I mean, some racers still race like that. You got a few of them, but what was Bobby's ambition with that? Was it money related, or was that just racing related, or a combination of that? You think?
I think he just loved short track racing.
Yeah.
And in contracts back then, I don't guess you had a clause where, hey, you're done with that.
Right. Yeah.
So, and it was a money thing too.
Yeah, because
he got pretty good money to show up.
Yeah, and then because there was not many weekends that you guys were not following the NASCAR stuff and racing close by.
Yeah.
I mean, it was almost every week you guys were there racing somewhere.
Yeah, we were gone from Wednesday to generally Wednesday and be back Monday.
Yeah, wow.
When we got to go with the cars and but I mean we did crazy stuff. We gone to a racetrack and took the motor out of the hauler. Blew the motor up, the good motor up, took the motor out of the hauler, put the cam in it, heads on it, put it in a race car, and went up and made his deal. Ended up running second.
Wow.
At either Midville, Ohio, or it was somewhere up there. And we couldn't get out there until we put the motor back together in the truck. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's how it was back then. There wasn't 15 motors sitting in your truck.
Correct. Did you become, it's one thing to be a fabricator and all that, but the engine-wise and stuff like that, did you get up to speed on all the motor stuff as well?
Yeah, a little bit. They got me working with Durr and Tommy Howe. Bobby actually had his own race engine building. He was very, very good at small block Chevy stuff. And Tom and Durr, which just about gone in memory, but they were real active in the day-to-day customer engine stuff.
Okay, so I didn't know you'd done customer engine stuff too.
Oh yeah, they did. They linked up with Reed, John Reed at Reed Cams, and they back in the day, I think Bobby really liked Chet Herbert.
Okay.
They had a old Chet Herbert number 90 they'd put in everything.
Okay.
And it was
that a camshaft?
Actually a roller cam, but it had flat tappet looking rollers on it.
Okay.
And that's, I think, what Bobby got in trouble with in a Matador later on in time.
I got you. Okay. So did the engine shop stay at the old shop?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was at the old
because they had
shop.
the dyno and
Right,
all that stuff
right.
was there at the shop.
Yeah.
And so it was all being done right there. So
Right.
That's news to me. I didn't realize that the motor program was
Yeah, the old engine shop. I mean, Durr and Tommy were, Durr was from Eastern Airlines.
Okay.
He did aircraft stuff. So I guess he bumped into Bobby down there racing or something and got them up here, and they lived in Pleasant Grove, and Tommy actually drove a little bit.
Okay. Wow.
He had a little 64 Chevelle, and they were quite a couple.
Okay.
I stayed in their motel room one night, and that was it.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it was a crazy thing. So, but Tommy was really, I think he raced the whole time, and he got burnt real bad in a go-kart when he was a kid.
Oh, okay.
Alcohol, he was, they fixed him up pretty good, but
He still had scars.
so I think Durr really.
And his name was Tom?
Tommy, Howe.
Howe, okay.
Yeah.
And then the other guy?
Durr. The daddy was Durr.
Oh, the dad. Okay, so it was a father-son
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah, it was.
They stayed there for a good while?
Yeah, I think they were with Bobby probably 4 years at least.
Okay, yeah.
Right about the time when, he kind of downsized after
Right.
Junior's deal.
Yeah. So again, that's pretty cool that you become to get the opportunity to get the knowledge of the engines and everything else that you've done, because most people stay in their own whatever territory they get in. They don't seem to move back and forth. But that was a great education for you. That you couldn't have bought that.
No. Well, and the guys that after Durr and them come along. I mean, Mario Rossi was there for a while, and then. With the big block program came on just right around the Diegard time. That was all kind of run through Bobby's
Yeah.
as well. And Dave Avzelnut came out there, which was huge with big block Chevys.
Okay.
So I got to, work with Dave some, and, I could set the valves and stuff at the track. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't hardly do that.
Right. Yeah.
So they really taught me, do that little bit of stuff. I was always changing plugs and, that kind of stuff that nobody really wanted to do it. But,
Right. Yeah.
back then we indexed all the plugs where we went.
Yeah. Right.
And, got all them set up. But actually, um, back then, they brought all that. Dave brought all that technology because he was at Diamond Racing Engines in Detroit,
Okay.
which was huge back then.
No, I remember Butch Nelson telling me the first time they met Vazelnuk and stuff that he brought a motor by for them to run, and kind of said, "Here you go, take this and run it and see what you get and stuff."
Mhm.
And the motor was super strong, and
Oh yeah,
it was just very. Butch it was, I guess, blown away by the performance and the weather, the race, the motor done, and ran them for quite a long time. And then I know a bunch of other people did as well during that time.
Yeah. Dave left Bobby's and kind of went on with a guy named Jim York, I think, and they started their own little deal. And he would still do some stuff for Bobby, but he wanted to have his own engine shop. So, but right around in that time, Mario Rossi come into the picture a little bit.
Yeah.
And he was without a job or whatever.
Let's talk about Mario a little bit, because I mean, he was a car owner prior to that,
Right.
that Bobby drove for and had a lot of success with, and I guess the Chrysler shutting down of the manufacturers being involved, that's kind of eliminated his situation and really threw him in a different environment. And so he comes to work with Bobby.
Yeah, he came when I guess Junior and Bobby had to split, so we ended up having to build our own Monte Carlos.
Yeah.
And Bobby would also, we leased a car out. He had an old car from Junior's, and we leased it out to, I think, one of the Bentonhausers run it one time, and then after that, Richie Pants got in it, and a lot of people would come to Bobby's to try to get their kids mentored.
Yeah,
because he was just well respected all over the country.
Yeah, correct. And again, had a lot to offer as far as more so than anybody else, because he's kind of leading the charge in that area then with the shop and everything that he had to offer people. So you're sitting there and you're tell me about the first time you meet Neill. How's that go?
Well, we were running a short track deal, and we got into a quarter elliptic rear spring stuff, and which was crazy to me. I had seen it or heard about it years ago. Never really saw it in action, but we started doing that program, and Bobby actually got jammed up, so much he couldn't do a lot of the short track stuff. And Neill was good, and they ended up getting together. Neill ended up getting a deal from Armor All, and had some money, and he come to the shop and offered Bobby a deal, and he just had a budget, so Bobby said, "Sure, you do it. You just buy the parts from me. You get anybody here to work after hours, and you can go ahead and do it." So we got that deal going. Bill Holman helped him a lot, building the car, the cage, the sheet metal. We all jumped in.
It was a very pretty car. The paint scheme on that car was really sharp.
Yeah. He Armor All, I think that brought that to Neill.
Yeah.
And then I'm pretty sure Carroll did it out in the body shop.
Wow.
So it was something pretty special. So that's really how we bumped into Neill, and just always linked up and had a good relationship.
So at some point you go back to South Florida. Is that correct? At some point?
And Bobby's deal with Junior kind of messed the whole thing up, and Bobby said, "Well, I want to kind of keep you, but I got to cut your pay." And I said, "Well, I just,
You were above the $55 mark at that point.
Yeah, I was doing, good for back then.
I got you.
And I got a little piece of the car. And he said, I kind of want you to do the short track program here. And I wasn't offended. I was just a bad business choice at the time, just young and wanting to do something else. And I had the opportunity to go elsewhere. And so I really kind of wanted to start out getting different teams and stuff, seeing how things were done a little bit different. So,
So you wanted
that's what started
you
that.
wanted to go to another Cup team, maybe, or is that was that what your
Well,
aspirations?
yeah.
Okay.
I ended up going to, at that time, I got a call to go to Holman and Moody.
Okay.
And,
Now you'd contacted them
well, no, actually, I knew Bobby Jones pretty good. And,
Okay.
he's gone now, but Bobby Jones had a pretty bad reputation I mean, he'd climb up in the tree, tell you a lie rather than stand down on the ground and tell you the truth.
and he was a Holman Moody employee.
No, he actually,
Oh.
good fabricator. I met him with Junior Johnson.
Oh.
He worked with Junior and Cale and Herb Nab and all them back in the day. So he said, man, Lee Holman starting Holman and Moody back up. Do you want to come up? I said, when do I need to be there?
Yeah. Right.
So I went up, and he was running the fab shop, and did really good. We built probably 80 cars.
Wow.
I mean, in a very short, not totally done, but
Yeah.
mainly the chassis, the cage. We had surface plates, and a lot.
And y'all were about that then. That was like you would get a car to a certain point, and then you would
Right.
send it to
Right.
whatever team and whatnot
Right.
at that time.
And
Okay.
they would buy it at different stages. But,
Right.
But I got up there, and everything was going pretty good. And Bobby's bad to get drunk, and he got drunk and got mad at Lee Holman and jacked his jaw. And
Oh.
he was gone for sure.
Right.
And I said, well, I'm gone next.
Now, who's Lee Holman at this time?
That's John Holman's son.
Okay.
John had passed
Okay.
earlier, and somehow
So was John pretty young when he passed away?
I think so.
I would think
60s maybe.
Yeah, I would think. Okay.
He wasn't that old. But John was actually started out, I guess, a scrap guy, alternators, transmissions, that kind of thing. I think Slick Thompson told me that he died on the side of the road with a load of cores in the back of a box truck.
Really? Wow.
That's where they found him, had a heart attack.
Wow.
But anyway, Lee was a kind of a sailboat guy. I didn't really know. In fact, Holman Moody's kind of going. Lee's got it going today. I keep up with Facebook on him.
Yeah.
But anyway, I loved it because, man, I went up Holman and Moody, and they still had, when I got there, they were scrapping all the Boss 429 heads, blocks, moles. I mean, there was these big old metal dumpsters out there, and they were scrapping all that stuff. So I got to go up in the old attic up there and see, back, I never got to see it when I went to Holman's in '69, but they had cars in crates all stacked up in hangars.
Really?
Had Lolas, had the Ford GT stuff, I think Mario Andretti ended up with one of the Daytona Cobras.
Wow.
But anyway, I went up there and I saw a GT 40 door.
Really?
Up top underneath a bunch of stuff, and man, it was tempting to grab that thing.
I bet. Especially if you had it today, that would be.
It was the door.
Yeah,
it was banged up on one of the Le Mans deals.
Oh, my goodness.
But anyway, I
this
enjoyed that. It was
big
cool.
place, big square footage.
Oh, huge.
Huge.
I mean,
Okay.
It was huge. The fab shop was probably, it had 4 or 5 surface plates in it. That's mainly the heavy duty stuff got done there.
Yeah.
At a machine shop, they'd make your pieces, and we had actually built the cages up there ourselves. So we kind of redesigned that stuff. Bobby Jones was a pretty good fabricator.
And Bobby got along with Moody, right? But it was Holman that he had that didn't like him so much back in the day.
Yeah. John, I don't think liked Bobby. Kind of like a Junior Johnson deal with Bobby. They just didn't mesh. But I mean, Ralph was all the way friends with Bobby to the end.
Yeah.
I mean, Ralph knew the value of where Bobby came from.
Right. So you're working there, and so how long do you stay at Holman and Moody? This time?
I was there maybe 8 or 9 months, and then Bobby did this, and I'm going, oh my goodness, I'm out the door.
Yeah.
So Lee said, well, you can stay for a while. Said, I'm going to close down this fab shop and do something else. And so I'm stuck like Chuck up there. So I said, what the heck am I going to do? So I called Robert G. I ended up knowing Robert. And I said, man, I got a little place. He said, well, come on out here and help me. And he was at the time doing Darrell Waltrip's Bush cars back then.
Okay.
The Infinity cars, they call them now.
Yeah.
And so I went and helped Robert, and that was an experience. That was a dude, man.
Was he?
Oh, he's fabulous. Probably one of the best body men you'd ever seen. I mean, he did all the crazy noses and stuff, back in the day.
Right.
And, he was actually did the English wheel stuff. They had a lot of that at Holman and Moody, but
Yeah.
I learned a different way to move metal.
Wow. Okay. So that
Back then.
again, you're going to another college and getting another great
yep.
education. That's
Yep.
just,
Well, and Ray Fox Jr. was building engines in the back of his shop.
is that,
I mean, his shop was Speedway Body Shop. It was right outside of the Charlotte Speedway. Robert was Dale Earnhardt's first wife's
right.
daddy-in-law.
Okay.
So, we had some fun. It was crazy.
Did you meet Earnhardt back in that time or?
He come in a little bit.
Yeah,
and
right.
just walked in and, just like nothing. And,
Yeah.
and got to meet him some. And Robert he would do some pranks. I mean, he's bad to drink in the evenings. I
Right.
mean, he's bad to drink all the time.
Right.
But he still got the job done. And I remember Harry Hyde, he was real good buddies with Harry Hyde Sr.
Okay.
He did a lot of the Dodgers. He worked with K&K way back in the day with Kenny Trout and all them guys. And he come in one day and he goes, and at that time, in fact, I saw Harry Jr. on something they had the other day.
Yeah.
And he's gotten a lot bigger, but he was actually working for UPS.
Really?
So yeah, Robert says, "Hey, Harry's going to bring Harry Jr. is going to bring a package out here to us." He said, "Everybody stripped down to nothing but your welding helmets and your boots." So Harry comes back, and Harry's kind of a timid, he's a big old guy, but man, just real timid. He comes in with the boots, and Robert standing there next to him, and Harry just drops the package. He just had fun. I mean, he was a fun guy. That was probably really weird. But.
Yeah, but that's right. So how long did you get to work there?
Well, I stayed there until I could get out and come back. And
Okay.
when I left, Bobby Jones again calls me. He says, "I got this big deal down in Florida with Ralph Moody and a guy. They're building a 110-mile-a-gallon car, and they're building, we're building AC Cobras, and they need us down there." And it was me, Bobby Jones, and Kenny Trout.
Okay.
Which Kenny was originally from Florida.
Right.
And so we all got together and built some stuff. And this, it was called the Shetley Mobile, supposed to get 110 miles a gallon. And we actually put some turbo diesels and 5-speeds and stuff and little Mercury Capris. And it got about 72, 73 miles a gallon, which wasn't bad.
No, yeah.
But Shetley promoted it as, oh boy, all the oil people in Saudi, they wanting to kill me. And he was a promoter.
Okay.
So
yeah.
Ralph left that deal. And while I was down there is where I met my wife, Kate.
Okay.
During that whole.
And where do y'all meet at?
We met at New Smyrna.
Okay. She's a race fan?
Well, no, she actually had a broken leg, terribly broken, and came down with a friend of hers and met a girlfriend, which introduced me to her. And, that kind of got me going a little on the straighter path.
Okay. So you end up with a shop down there at some point, right? Your own shop. Is this the same time frame that all this happens for you with your own shop? Right after that? Yeah.
I actually ended up renting a shop right out by the airport in New Smyrna.
Now, what are you going to be doing there?
Well, I actually got into building high mileage stuff. So I would put Perkins diesels and stuff in Chevy pickups. Back then they didn't have any of that.
Right. Yeah.
We would turbocharge and build our own stuff, and had a few customers and ended up doing pretty good. And during speed weeks, that's how I got involved with Gary Ballou and those guys.
Tell us about that.
And
So Gary Ballou, who else is written?
There was Junior Hanley was out there, Billy Harvey.
Okay.
And they needed a shop. They were all coming up from Florida, and Junior was from Canada.
Yep.
So I just got out of my shop and rented them my shop for the whole week and kind of got the whole month.
Okay.
Because they were there the whole time. So that's how I got introduced to them. And it was a whole nother that's when aerodynamics really kind of got.
Did you work with them at all, or you just got out of the way?
A little bit.
Yeah, because you got to be for anybody at this point in time, racing wise, you got to be a pretty good hand.
Yeah. Yeah. And I helped him somewhat. I mean, you couldn't keep up with Junior Hanley.
Right.
I mean, this guy he was a Bill Holman. For sure. And
you were speaking earlier about Junior, and he's talking about his skill set and knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you said he was just very, very way ahead of his time at that point. Correct?
Yeah. Junior actually, all those guys, Glenn Bopp, Junior, Ed Howe, Ray Dillon, all those, and I think Bobby Seneker was involved with them too. They all kind of got together and did that ASA stuff with Howe and
Okay.
got Howe racing going.
Yeah.
And then they all split off, because Ed was quite a guy, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think I even met Ed, but
Yeah.
he did what Bobby should have done.
Right.
He got into production business and did really well for probably 6-7 years.
I drove a Howe car one time, and I'm telling you, it was I just hot lapped it for a friend of mine, and then at Birmingham, and he came into town, and I told him, I said, if you can't win the race with this car right here, something's wrong with you, because we were taking the tires off my car and putting on that, and that car really, really handled well and stuff. It was really a good race car.
Yeah, they had a different principle. They didn't really use a lot of body roll. They just put a lot of wedge and everything.
Yeah, right.
And where we would bend the chassis a little bit and do a few little things, they just physically did it.
Yeah.
With a lot of rollout and stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of them, they used locked rear ends for years.
Yeah. So during this time, if I'm bringing the story up to speed correctly, Gary Ballou gets hurt down there and injures his neck.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'd come up there again with the head restraint. Something got me going on it, so I went down with actually Mike Lozier and Crystal Lozier helped me. I got the idea. I said, Crystal, help me sew this thing up. I just want to keep the head on the shoulders.
Who are these people?
They're Mike Lozier was actually a modified guy from up north.
Okay.
And he moved down to New Smyrna area and actually did a racing school right at New Smyrna Speedway.
Okay.
And was very good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Jamie McMurray went through his thing. He knew him from somewhere. And Mike was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I had a program for a long time.
Okay.
But, in Florida, everybody would come down there because the winters were great. You could still run the track. So they just kind of took me in. I got the crazy idea. Well, I actually went to NASCAR with this thing, and I said, man, I just got the idea. I want to try to keep a head on the shoulder, and didn't even know what a basal head fracture was at the time, but just, said.
And your memory of seeing Freddie Hassler that day was still at the forefront of your mind. And then Gary breaks his neck, correct? And I think you told me that at that point you told Gary that I think I've got some way of helping in that situation. Yeah. Well,
Gary had broken his neck somewhere and had to run that series and went to Jackson, Mississippi. And Billy Harvey says, man, you got a head restraint that fit Gary. So I said, sure. So I went and we fitted Gary up a little bit, and he used it for a while. And, after that, Billy said, man, I like this idea. Let me help you out. So Gary said, Billy, I had no money.
Right.
And, shop just kind of struggling. And I said, sure, Billy, man, you don't want to get involved? Sure. We talked no business. He said, come down, I'll give you some money.
Right.
I rode down to Delray Beach. He gave me a stack of hundreds like that and said, here, you go do what you want to do with it.
Wow.
So, which was my relation. Actually, I didn't know it, but we were talking to Billy. Somebody said, call Billy. He might invest a little bit in it. So I was talking to Billy Harvey on the telephone at Daytona Speedway. He was actually meeting with NASCAR to try to, I guess, pay him so he could drive. Billy always wanted to drive.
Okay.
But he was a convicted felon.
Right.
He couldn't.
Yeah.
So I guess he was there trying to make a deal with NASCAR. And the helicopter guy, Billy says, here, take off and go over there and fuel. So we took off and getting ready to go fuel and crashed the helicopter, about like Davey Allison's.
Wow.
So it messed the pilot up. It didn't kill him. But I guess Davey or Billy thought, man, this guy saved my life, having him on the phone.
Right.
Because it was on the landline.
Okay,
he had a cell phone, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I guess that's what it was. I don't know. But anyway, getting back to that deal. So they said, come on, get on a plane, fly down here. So I got on a plane, flew to Jackson, got Gary fitted all up in the head restraint, and he went on and raced, and they were a pretty active crew, that's for sure. They had some wild stuff going on.
Sure.
I mean, Days of Thunder had nothing on these guys. So,
it's a real Days of Thunder, right?
We won't get much deeper than that.
I got you.
But they were a whole different breed. Randy Sweet was around and kind of worked with Junior a lot. Back then it's like today. Everybody wants a grill car, or everybody wants a Seneca car or a Fury car.
Sure.
I mean, Junior was probably the key guy back then.
Right. Yeah.
And I talked to Junior one time. I actually was a Junior Hanley dealer here for a little while, and he got me a chassis or two. And I come back and built the jig over at old Newman's shop, and he just goes, "Man, I'm tired of these people." He said, "Next car I send out, I'm going to weld the jack bolts and just tell them here's the tires and the air pressure you run. Don't adjust the chassis." Because he was just different.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're believing in this neck restraint system, and you can't get much testing done in any way. So you decide to do your own.
Oh yeah, I was a knucklehead. Well, when I went to NASCAR, the first meeting with Gasway, he goes, "Man, we kind of like the idea, but you got to have a lot of testing." So I contacted Wayne State University. Was the only place I knew that had these crash dummies back then. I just found them somehow. I think one of the guys at one of the colleges in Florida helped me find them. So I called them. "Sure, you can come on up. We'll test your head restraint. You got to have about $200,000 in escrow in case we tear up one of our dummies."
Wow.
So I just went, "Uh-oh, that ain't going to happen." So I said, "Well, heck, I'll test it. I don't want anybody to wear something and, that I wouldn't hit the wall with."
Right.
So I got the crazy idea, let's do it. And, back then the speed limit was 55 miles an hour. So I said, "Man, I'll hit this wall at 55 miles an hour." And, I'd raced and, I've hit the car walls about $130 and glanced off and wasn't any big deal. So here we get this deal going. So I get with Lozier again. He helps me we build a Cadillac. We got in touch with
Is he about the only person helping you at this time?
Yeah. Yeah, really. I mean, he had resources and he had a tubing bender at that time. I didn't even have my tubing bender. So we bent up a little cage and got checking with Guinness Book and to do the world's record. I think the world's record was 35 miles an hour with a stunt man actually doing that. And the car was like a couple $100,000 car.
Right.
So I had like a 50-cent car.
Cadillac, right?
Cadillac, yeah. And the guy said, "Well, Cadillac's the way to go because you got a lot of crush in the front. And with the record, you couldn't do anything hardly from the firewall out."
Okay.
So I got with the stunt guy down there, and he said, "Man, I've wrecked stuff." He worked with Joey Chitwood. And he said, "Just sit in the back seat, get your rope, and steer that thing, get your throttle thing, and hold that throttle and go for it." So,
you didn't think about letting him do the crash?
No, he didn't want to do it.
Oh,
he was smarter than me.
Okay.
Much smarter. So
he said you could do it though.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll watch it. So anyway, we talked to this guy named Ray Anders. He was with That's Incredible. And I said, "Ray, man, I'm going to hit this car." That's Incredible was big. People doing stupid stuff and getting paid for it. So I called him up, and Ray goes, "Sure, man, you're going to hit a wall at what? Get this on video, and I'll give you $25,000. Just unspoken, no contract, no nothing. $25,000, no problem. You come out alive, call me." So anyway, I mean, I was really kind of nutty. I don't know, when you get a invention in your mind or something, it drives you to a whole nother level.
Yeah, well, it does. I mean, like you said, and yet you've got a lot of components coming at you. You got the $25,000. You got the opportunity to prove your system. I mean, so there's a lot of factors that are driving your emotions and stuff at that time. So I can only imagine. So y'all, and where do you do this at? Where you at?
New Smyrna Speedway.
Oh, okay.
So I call, and I had kind of somebody help me with a little PR, and they called Clyde Hart and said, "Man," said, "this guy's," Clyde had a lot of crazy stuff done. He'd, promote for the New Smyrna Speed Weeks and stuff. He'd jump school buses and whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
So he calls and he says, "Man, hit a wall." He said, "Man, George needs about $5,000. Will you help him out?" And he said, "Heck no, but I'll let him use my track." So he said, "I ain't paying him nothing to kill himself. He's going to have to sign all this stuff. I'll let him use my track." So I said, "Okay, we'll do it Thursday at 5:00.
Okay.
One Thursday, no racing.
So how do you create this wall? How is it created? Is it?
Well, I actually got the guy that was backing me a little bit. He owned Suncoast Construction down there. He would be a big housing guy.
Yeah.
So he, you know, had some connection with concrete people. So we called one of these big concrete, Kirkler or something out there. They brought in big chunks of concrete about as big as that thing right there.
Okay. Yeah.
And we had them stacked on top of each other.
Okay.
And I had 8 of them.
Okay.
So we figured, we did the figuring and said, probably going to kill me. The guy at GM said, you're going to die over 35.
Really?
So if you hit something like that, your heart is going to explode.
Wow.
There's no two ways about it, over 35. And, you know, you don't just crumple it down to nothing. So anyway, I was running a lot. I was in pretty good shape. So anyway, they stacked all this concrete up. And that stunt guy said, he said, take some push rods on the bottom ones. Throw you a few push rods under there, you know,
Okay.
out of a car.
Okay. Yeah.
That would, you know, have a
Have it
little bit of
move.
movement.
Yeah.
But I mean, these things were tons of stuff. So, you know, we had a little jackleg operation, but we had all 3 networks. They come in there, and a guy from Orlando, Channel 9 or something, he said, man, I'm going to stand on top of them things while you hit it.
No.
I said, no, I don't know if I'd do that now. So we had it fixed up pretty cool. I was sitting in the back seat. We had the stunt guy said, put these plates on it where the engine won't come in on you. It'll.
Yeah.
So we had it all that good,
Yeah.
and the steering wheel would go up, wouldn't come back a lot.
Yeah.
So, you know.
So, and you're doing this at 55?
55 miles an hour. But here's a kick. Now, the world's record was like 35.
Okay.
So we had a Florida State trooper out there going to document all this stuff. And I said, man, them tires on the back of that car look pretty darn good, man. Let's get them off that thing, off this guy. That's just, you know, my old school thinking.
How are you going to save those for?
I guess my truck
Okay.
probably needed it. So I put different tires on it. And when I hit the wall, it was actually 59 miles an hour because evidently the tire size messed it up.
Okay.
So anyway, I'm going around and this little
So
girl.
you're ignoring the 35 mile an hour and your heart exploding.
I said the speed limit is 55. Man, I've hit a wall with a race car before, faster than that.
Okay.
But you know, I mean, if you've ever hit like this,
that's different.
It's way different.
Okay.
So, you know, not much crumple factor there.
Okay. So you've totally ignored him and you're going to do the 55.
55, because that's the speed limit. That's got to be
All
a
right.
little
You're convinced.
for that's incredible.
Okay.
So anyway, I go around and, you know, I was going to go around and make a lap. And so I go around and boom, I just hit it like that. So anyway, Mike, I hit it and I'm going like this. It pulls me down in the seat. And I'm looking around. I said, man, I'm dead. I know I'm dead. I look at the car and the smoke and everything coming out. And Mike Lozier comes around there and he jumps up in the front and he unbuckles my seat. You know, he was an old racer. He knew, man, it knocked the wind out of me.
Sure.
So he unbuckled the seat belts and, oh, Mike, thank you. So then I look down and my driver's suit is just about this big as the driver's suit would get. So I evidently somehow we had it all fixed to where nothing, my legs would not hit anything. I was 3 or 4 inches from the dash, everything.
Yeah.
And evidently somehow my leg must have gone up and hit something when it was coming back, the dash or whatever.
Okay.
So, you know, later on doing engineering, it doesn't take, if you just touch it, it's going to start breaking stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, I went from 59 miles an hour to 0 in 0.182 seconds.
Wow.
That's that.
Wow.
And that Cadillac looked like a Chevy too.
Oh, wow.
So anyway,
so you know you're hurt.
Oh, I'm hurt. So they're videoing all the TV people's up there, and I go like this. I'm fine. So I said, get them out of here. So they leave, and then they drag me out, and you know, they're putting me on the stretcher, and they're going along, and
but your neck's good.
Oh, upper body's fine. I'm good. I'm thumbs up and everybody.
Yeah.
So we're going on the stretcher. I said, they're just going to check me out at the hospital. That's a bad wreck. So we go on in there, and I'm going along on the stretcher, and my body's here, and my leg just goes off the sideways because it's broken half right here.
Wow.
So it goes off the sideways, and I hear people hitting the ground. I mean, they just passed out. I look, I go, oh my goodness. So I don't feel nothing, you know, other than something wrong.
Yeah.
So anyway, they carried me to the hospital, get through all that. And, you know, I had met Kate
Yeah.
prior to this.
Right.
She flew back to Canada.
Okay.
She really didn't know anything about it.
Okay.
So,
did she know you were going to do this?
well, she knew I was thinking about it.
Thinking about it. Okay.
Yeah, and she was definitely not for it.
Right.
So I guess she figured, well, I won't see him again. So anyway, it was an experience. We, got all that going, and so I'm in the hospital 30 days, and
30.
Yeah, I was in traction. I mean,
Wow.
I broke all this out, compound fractures, broke this in half. I mean, they back then it was old school. I was in traction for a week and a half.
So it was just your right leg?
Just the right leg.
Okay.
Yeah, everything else was good.
Okay.
So, I mean, they were amazed. They said, you should have been gone.
Right. Yeah.
So, at that point, I went, what in the heck have I done?
Right. Yeah.
So I'm up in the room.
So how are you? I mean, are you disappointed in yourself? Are you let down? What are your emotions at this point?
No, I'm just thinking it was going to be a whole lot easier. I'd walk out, boy, here's your big deal going.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't think the good Lord had that for me.
Right. So you're in the hospital and you're seriously hurt. You're I guess pain's at a high level.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
And what are you thinking that life's going to bring you in the near future? What's your mindset?
Well, I was just kind of hoping because I had insurance, but very little.
Okay.
And
did you get paid correctly on all the stuff that people had promised you?
No. I mean, Clyde wasn't going to pay, and I ended up, getting my wits about me 4 or 5 days later, or 6 days. I called Kate and I said, "Well, baby," I said, "I'm kind of in the hospital. I'm okay, but I crashed that car." Anyway, I don't even know what she said. "Oh, are you hurt bad?" That kind of thing. I said, "Baby, I'm part of the pain gang now, that's for sure." But she had broken her leg about the same prior. So I said, "Man, I broke my leg."
How'd she break her leg? Do you know?
Bad as yours. And a car hit her in a truck or something.
Okay.
Hit driver's side and it somehow broke her leg.
Okay. So y'all
But
both...
she kind of knew. So anyway, I said, "Baby," I said, I apologize, but it didn't come out exactly like I thought it would.
So who cleans this mess up that's at the racetrack?
My guys helped me. They actually took the car, which I wish I would have kept that car, but that car laid out at New Smyrna. They just drug it out in the infield because everybody wanted to look at it.
Oh, yeah, right.
For months.
Yeah.
And Daytona would come along, and boy, they'd interview me. The Crash King did this and that. They didn't care about the head restraint. They just cared about a Cadillac that looked like a Nova.
Yeah, and the guy survived.
Yeah. But, looking back in retrospect, I had 4 stacks of concrete up there. And if I had centered all 4 of them, there's no way I'd be here.
Really?
Somehow, I was just steering with a rope.
Yeah.
I hit 3 of them just perfect.
Okay.
So the impact I could have taken, there was 25% less.
Really?
So, I mean, I got the picture at the shop, and I showed people. I said, "You don't think there's a God? I'm going to show you. I wasn't driving that thing."
That's right, yeah.
So anyway, we got through that, and the doctor comes in and says, "Man, you can get a fat embolism. You got a 50-50 chance of losing your leg." And I said, "Lord, get me out of this." One of them come to Jesus things.
That's right, yeah.
All the promises and all that. And he got me through it. And things didn't go exactly as planned.
Right. So you like you said, you get a lot of publicity, but it's not the publicity that you're seeking for your head restraint system. Yeah. And so after you start to heal and you kind of get back on your feet, what are the first things that happens in George's life at that point?
Well, at that time, I got this data. My neck's fine. I got them X-ray my whole body, neck's great. All this is all that. And so I called NASCAR back. I said, "Man, I don't have any engineering data, but I hit something at a ton."
Yeah, I'm sure they'd already heard about it.
Oh, yeah, they heard about it. Yeah. That's the way it goes. Well, okay. I'll tell you what we can do. I sent them a flyer that, hey, I want to start selling these things, get them out, at a little price, like it's like $65 or something.
Yeah.
And I rigged up the hooks and stuff. I said, "I need some engineering help, and would you get involved and help me?" And they, looking back now, they couldn't. But they said, George, you can take these to the track, do what you want to do. I'm on crutches. I said, I'm going to the track in February.
Right.
So I go to the track. Billy backed me, so I had 50 of these things built.
Right.
And all the hardware to do them, different sizes. And we had a sewing machine, and Crystal Lozier went with me to the track at Daytona. Mine were basically designed to go into the driver's suit and be stitched in.
Okay.
Which, if you look at the Simpson racing thing now, that they wear, that was basically my harness.
Okay.
Right. All they did was put a little Hans thing on the back to run the tethers up higher on your head. That's what slows down that that initial spike you get.
Right. So, and again, I think looking back at the point, you were disappointed. It had to be because NASCAR wouldn't get involved. But as we understand lawyers and liabilities and stuff, you see now that there was really no way for them to even if they understood it. You were on your own still, correct?
Yeah, they knew there was an issue, I'm sure, but just never, just really couldn't do anything. But anyway, they said, you cannot use, I put like on a pamphlet, approved for NASCAR racing, not NASCAR approved. They said, you can't put that.
Right.
You're welcome to come on out to the track. You move this anywhere you want. So I went to Daytona, caught Rusty Wallace, all them guys, Darrell Walter, which I knew Darrell a little bit. I said, man, here, put one of these head restraints on, stretch the neck thing. If nothing else, it'll help you in the turns. You can just take them 2 buckles, go down, and your neck's not so bad.
Yeah.
So while I was at the track, Harry Hyde had a guy running for him named Ty Scott.
Okay.
He had a neck injury. He was a helicopter pilot in Nam or something and had a bad neck injury. So I actually fixed one up for him, for Harry. Yeah. And he raced it and just, it never went anywhere, I don't think. But anyway, we did that and was not a lot of success. But, short track guys kind of liked it and sold a few. And I really wasn't happy with the hardware I have. Now they have the really nice quick clips.
Yeah, right. It was cumbersome. It was a little bit hard to sell, I suppose, because of the that kind of thing.
But anyway, that's about as far as that.
Right. Yeah. Well, you were definitely dedicated. You were definitely on the right track. You know, I mean, like I said, the technology that you had and had engineered and thought of was definitely on the right track. And again, just before your time in that regard. So you get through with that, and then where do you start working? What's your next after that slow process? How do you start making money again? Where do you go to work? What do you do?
Well, after that, I had the shop down there still, and had a few trucks to build and a few cars, and I met Kate, and actually during the time I proposed to her and flew up to Canada, married her up there on crutches.
Wow.
With a cast.
Yeah.
And so she still took me on. I don't know, maybe she was on some meds from her leg injury or something. I don't know. But anyway, it was a blessing, a great part of my life. And so that's where, that kind of ended. And I went along a little bit and got working with Billy Harvey a little on the car and had a few issues with wanted to give me a lot of money, doing things I might not want to do. Right. Yeah. So at that point, I said, well, maybe it's time to go back to Alabama. It's just going to get too convenient.
Were you tempted?
Definitely.
Definitely.
But not much, I mean, when Lord give you your leg back and you're halfway hobbling around and still able to make a little bit.
Do you think that, what if you had not gotten hurt and you had been there in that deal?
Well, I would not be sitting here now. Life would have been totally changed. It would have been kind of like the Hans guy, because I was 2 years before the Hans even was around.
Right, yeah.
So it would have been developed. I had actually pretty good backing with this builder, and we went to NASCAR, and we were sitting down, and all he wanted NASCAR to say is, that we had an exclusive on the head restraint for 2 years.
Right. Yeah. Just
And
enough to get you.
Yeah, to get rolling. He was
Right.
a business guy.
Sure.
So
yeah.
he said, I'll back you. You know, I've got plenty of money. We'll get it going. And NASCAR just said, no, we can't do it. And
What about, okay, I understand that part, but what about being in South Florida involved with that trade that they were in? If you hadn't got hurt and maybe made that deal and when you're in the hospital in your mind about your relationship, I know, because I know you're have a close relationship with God and but would you have been tempted to gotten more involved in that? I don't think you would, just because I know you.
No, there was no big temptation. I mean, you look at it and you're going, man, these guys are having a great time all the time.
Sure. Yeah.
And you know, that's not what life's about.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And also I was looking at them, and before a race, Billy Harvey would be over behind the toolbox throwing up.
Yeah.
I mean, he don't know where something's coming from.
Right. Yeah.
And I just, man, the Lord just said, man, that ain't the place for
Yeah.
it.
I just know you from the time I've known you. I just don't think your moral compass was ever set that direction, and
I had to get away.
Yeah. And I think you knew that. And even though, again, people of your character, your style or whatever, that just not your style,
No.
So you get a call from Neill Bonnett, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'd actually called, and somehow got hooked up with Neill back up here, and he had a 32 coupe or some hot rod he's working on, and he had a car that Dylan had started. It was a Mustang. At that time, he had the deal going with Warner Hogden and Woods Brothers.
Right. Yes.
So he was pretty well healed, and I said, Neill, man, I got to get out of here. He said, can you come back up and go to work?
Yeah. What made you call Neill?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just kind of heard something about it.
Okay.
And maybe through Bobby or somebody.
Yeah.
And I got to get back up here.